I walked around and jabbered a little bit with Mac trying to figure out how to do my part of this right now, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm getting ready to say some stuff, and I don't know what it is yet. That makes me a little bit nervous, but not very nervous because it happens to me a lot. So here goes. I'm sorry I'm only here for as short a time as I am because I love this place. This is really cool. And it's not because I get to look over a frozen lake, which is nice, but it's because I'm in a room with people who are familiar to me, even though most of you I've never seen before in my life, and stand a good chance of not seeing again, unless Val invites me back, which after I say what I'm getting ready to say now, she might not. You're familiar to me because I work in a place that's a lot like this. This is a great Department of Family Medicine, and you might not know that. I want to just tell you that. This is a great department. It's one of the best departments that has ever existed in the history of this planet. And you might not know that because you're here and you've got your heads down and you have to get up and go to work in the morning and it's just work for you. But coming in from the outside, I can see this clearly, and it's important for you to know that and be inspired by that. And I'm inspired by the quality of the questions that you're asking, by the fact that you asked me hard questions that I didn't know how to answer very well. And I know what that means. That's a signal to me. You know, the easy stuff, I say this all the time, the easy stuff, so here's what people come in and whine about in my office. If so-and-so would do right, everything would be okay. And I think if so-and-so would do right, I wouldn't need you. And you wouldn't need me. No, people don't do right. People have their own ideas about what they're here for and what they're doing, and our job is to reconcile those and turn them into something greater than the sum of those individual differences and those individual parts. And that's always hard. It's a creative act. It's an act of charity. It's an act of love to create from what people want and what people have to offer something greater than that, a third thing that's new under the sun. And you have more potential and more possibility for creating something new under the sun here than almost anywhere else. I'm going to reserve a few exceptions, but than almost anywhere else. And it's very inspiring and very humbling for me to see that, and go home proud of that. Go home proud of the fact that you're here, that you work here. Yes, you have to get up, and into every life a bunch of shitburgers fall. That's true. There's no getting out of that. You have to do stuff you don't want to do. That's the nature of work. And yet, the proportion of things you get to do that are good for the planet, that are good for you, that are good for your soul, that are good for the people you're supposed to be doing this for, is relatively high. And I'm inspired by that. You're here to sort of figure out what to do with yourselves and what to do with your future, what the prospects are, what the possibilities are, how to make use of your talents and your collective energies and so forth. And I heard a few things that I think go to that. I heard a couple, I'll give you examples, 2 examples of questions that I heard that I think are emblematic of the right spirit to move into the future in a constructive way. One of them was something along the lines, a very simple question along the lines of, what does the practice of the future look like? You know, that's a very brave question. That's a very different question than saying, how do I work with my primary care clinician? What does the practice of the future look like? That opens up the possibility that it might not be in a clinic, that it might not involve the people you're working with now, that it could be radically different from what you're looking at. And I think it will be different from what you're doing now. And facing that and embracing that is difficult but necessary. I think you're one of the few places that can actually make some progress in that direction. Another interesting question that actually came to me on a card has to do, I'm going to take some liberties here, but it has to do with what if primary care was really concerned itself, what would it look like if what we tried to do is really help people be healthier, health in the sense of realize your full potential as a partner at work, at school, in your relationships, to realize your full potential, to be healthy in the fullest sense of the word. What if that's what we did for a living? Instead of what we call it healthcare, but it's not healthcare. That's a misnomer. That's a mislabel. That's a misdirection so that we can get away with our wealth care system. We call it healthcare, but it's a wealth care system, and what we do is wait for people to get sick enough to make money off of them. What if instead primary care was concerned with what we can do to actualize people's health, to actually help people be as healthy as possible? I think that's a beautiful and a brave question that's going to take you into territory and forge partnerships with people that you don't have partnerships with right now, or that you don't have strong partnerships with right now because they're not part of the healthcare system. There are people all in your communities. There are people in the families that you take care of that care about their health and that have ideas about what to do to optimize it. Making serious partnerships with those kinds of people and with those kinds of organizations is going to cause you to be different. You're not going to be able to recognize yourself in the mirror after 3 or 5 years of that. And I think it's a right direction to go. And you've got the resources, and you've got the permission, and you've got the breathing room to do that here, whereas many people don't. You know, there were a lot of questions that sort of came about how do we work in a constrained environment? How do we do everything we're supposed to do when we don't have enough time, don't have enough money? I love that question, because that question says to me, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Your appetites for doing the right thing is great. And you can't have that appetite if you're damaged or you're starving. If you're starving, you just have bad table manners and you're trying to grab enough for yourself. If you're hungry but essentially well-nourished, you can ask those kinds of questions that say, how can we do more with the little that we've got? I think that's a beautiful question and a sign of health. And I would ask you to dwell on that and reflect on the fact that it's normal and healthy to be hungry and to not have enough. And you have that here. So more than kind of reflecting on the specific questions that I think were good or hard questions, I want to really encourage you and inspire you to keep going. This is a good direction. I wish I was going to be back to see what you do next. I'll read about it, but I won't get to see it with my own eyes. But you're lucky. You're fortunate. You're lucky to be here now. And I hope you can take a moment before you get up to put in another day to reflect on that and celebrate that and make something out of it. Thank you so much for having me here.